Morning everybody. Today we are going to carry on doing some trigonometry. It's going to be a really short lesson today. We're going to be looking at the trigonometric functions sec, cosec and cot. And they stand for secant, cosecant and cotangent. Now before we get going, I just want to remind you of something which you've seen lots of times before, especially at GCSE. So if I did something like sine minus 1 of x, that is equal to what some people have seen before is the arc sine of x. But most importantly, what we mean by this is that minus 1 means it's the inverse function of sine. And we have all seen how we write down inverses functions. Okay, remember if we have a function f of x, then its inverse is f minus 1 of x. Okay, so that's what we mean by inverse functions, especially with sine. Now, something else you guys would have seen before lots at GCSE and A level is something like this. So if I said what is x to the minus 1, you would say, well, that's 1 over x. So in this case, it means a reciprocal. Can I spell reciprocal? Maybe if I write it really fast. So these two notations mean something distinctly different. This means the inverse function. It doesn't mean 1 over sine. It means the inverse function. This means the reciprocal. And this minus 1 notation is really quite stupid, and that's why Miss Hughes never ever uses it and uses arc sine. I generally do use this. I think I probably use it because it is something that's used so widely. Okay, so why have I made this point, which is probably blatantly obvious to so many of you, but I can remember absolutely tripping me up for weeks and months a long time ago, and it was just because I never asked and no one probably specified it to me. They probably did, I wasn't listening. So these functions here, secant, cosecant and cot, have got something to do with sines and something to do with reciprocals. They've also got stuff to do with coses and tans as well. So if I define these, so if I say that cosec of x is 1 over sine of x. Okay, those two things are equal to each other. That's what cosec is defined as. So notice it is not this, because that means inverse function of sine, but it is this. Okay, this is the minus 1 is on the outside, so it's saying take the reciprocal of everything inside. That's saying it's the inverse function. So there's a subtle difference there, which is really important. The other two which we need to do is sec of x. So sec of x is 1 over cos, and cot x is 1 over tan. Excuse me, hay fever starting to come in. Okay, you guys need to know these for exams. You also need to know their graphs. And so what I'm going to ask you to do today is actually just to have a look at these graphs and do some transformations with them just to get used to them. I'm not going to draw the graphs for you now because they will be woeful in comparison to the nice neat ones in the book. So what I'd like you guys to do is just have a quick look at the graphs on page 146, and then do lots and lots and lots of exercise 6b, because you need to know these graphs really well, and by the end of doing these questions you should just be able to draw them. Before you disappear, one nice thing to note is how to remember which one's which for these. A lot of people always think, oh, well, this has got a cos in, so it should be the cos. So if you look at the third letter of cosec, if you look at the third letter of sec, and if you look at the third letter of cot, you'll notice it's the first letter of what you need over here, and that's how I remember them. Okay, that's all for today. Please spend 55 minutes now, getting really stuck into that exercise, and make sure that you know these graphs like the back of your hand. And that includes the domains and ranges. Okay, thanks so much, and I'll speak to you again tomorrow.